Hello, this is Jerry Temple. Today I'm going to give you a presentation on a 1978 340A Ram 6 Plus. The reason I say Ram 6 Plus is it has the American Aviation intercoolers, which gives you Ram 7-like performance. Both the 6 and the 7 are 335 horsepower up from the original 310. However, the 7 has a larger intercooler and turbocharger, but when you add the American Aviation intercoolers to the Ram 6, you get Ram 7-like performance. Very good. I'm a fan of that. It's very good. The paint and interior were done in December 2020, so it's very recent. Excellent paint on the technical data sheet and spec sheet. You can see the colors of the airplane. A good shop, paint shop. I've worked with them before. Some of the other exterior features are visibility, great visibility for pilot and co-pilot, large windshields and side windows, lots of baggage up in the nose and what we call wing locker storage. You'll notice the little recognition lights that have no speed restriction. Some people call them blister lights on the front of the nacelle. Taxi light on the nose, landing lights extend from the wing tips. This airplane has vortex generators and spoilers. Spoilers and speed brakes are the same thing. They also have no speed restriction. So let's move on to the inside of the airplane and we'll get some specifics. Let me say before we go any further, you're on my website, jerrytemple.net. Can't get easier, myname.net. Look at the spec sheet, which is an equipment list. Also, you'll look at the document. It's called the technical data sheet. The data sheet has weights, dimensions, and other technical stuff. The spec sheet is equipment. So you'll see the dates on the paint and interior, also December 2020, the colors, and any questions you can always call. Some of the exterior features is it's a full no-on-ice airplane. Repeat, no-on-ice. That means fully booted on the inner and outer wing. The wing stub is the inner. The tail, horizontal and vertical, heated propellers, hot plate on the windshield's pilot side, 35,000 BTU heater defroster for both pilot and co-pilot, heated pitot-static stole. Again, as you can see, the paint is excellent, done in December 2020. Great visibility for passengers, very non-claustrophobic. You'll have lots of volunteers that fly in this airplane, even those that think it's a little small airplane. Once you have people pull up their cars, load the baggage in the wing locker area, the nose, the cabin, you'll have a long line of volunteers, employees, friends, family. Great visibility again for your passengers, for your crew. Okay, let's take a look at the avionics in this airplane, then we'll slip into the cabin and look over some of the features of the cabin. This is a full picture of the panel. We'll do some additional close-ups in a moment. You can see the pilot has airspeed, a clock, a 3-inch flight director, electric altimeter, so therefore we'll have a standby barometric somewhere in the airplane on the co-pilot side, 3-inch HSI, vertical speed. Also you'll see on the panel there underneath the turn coordinator, or turn and slip, is an RMI. The airplane no doubt had an ADF at one point early in its life, and they've just left the RMI in. It's a nice backup to the HSI if you know how to use them. Notice the scuff plates on the floor. That's great. That saves some wear and tear also. We can put some mats down or other things to protect the flooring from coffee spills or something like that. Above the electric altimeter, you'll see the Tierra radar altimeter. It allows you to shoot some tight instrument approaches. Across the top, manifold RPM, the Hoskins digital fuel flow, the Insight G4 graphic engine monitor, the CESSNA 3-in-1 gauges, oil pressure, oil temp, and cylinder head, co-pilot instruments, Garmin audio panel, 530W. The number 2 is the good old reliable KX155. It displays on a CDI. Kind of hard to see. I think it's behind the co-pilot's yoke handle on the left side. GTX 345 transponder, ADS-B in and out. Avionics EX500 multifunction display that shows several things: traffic, weather, navigation. Great instrument. Yokes look good. They don't need a powder coating or leather covering, but those are options we could do, of course, is, paint them gray. Some people like them gray, or a nice leather covering. I have people who can do that for us. Again, above the electric altimeter is a Tierra radar altimeter. Above the airspeed, that little orange smash button is the spoiler speed brakes. sweep clock to the 7 o'clock position from the airspeed. 3-inch ADI flight director, 3-inch HSI, vertical speed. The mode selector is below the vertical speed. So when we turn the autopilot on, it just says, hello, what do you want me to do? So the mode selector says, hold the heading, fly this course, hold this altitude, that sort of thing. On the floor, you'll see that little red mechanism. It's an arm that comes up. It's called a rudder pedal gust lock. So it comes up, braces up against the rudder pedals when you're parking someplace and the wind's going to be significant. You'll notice on the throttles, the left throttle's fatter than the right one. That's part of the circuitry for the go-around procedure. So let's say you're on approach and you don't break out, you get down to your minimums. You need to obviously add power, pitch up. You hit with your thumb the little button and it gives you a pitch up command on your flight director. That's why it's called the flight director. Let's take a closer look at a few more things. Take a closer look at the center panel, manifold, RPM, Hoskins, fuel flow, G4, inside G4 graphic engine monitor, Garmin 530W displays on the HSI, good old KX155 displays on a CDI. You can still shoot an approach all day long to 200 feet. This airplane has a DME still in it. I really like that. I can compare my GPS mileage and DME. I'm sure it's part of the original equipment and just wasn't removed, and that was a good call on my part. EX500 graphic engine, EX500, excuse me, multifunction display, shows navigation, traffic, weather. You'll notice the throttle on the left throttle is fatter. The reason for that is it controls the go-around circuitry. So let's say you're in a tight approach, get to minimums, don't break out. You need to pitch up and add power. You hit that button, it gives you a pitch up command on the flight director. 400B autopilot with flight director. We have 3 axes of trim. The big elevator trim wheel you see right there, it looks like it's splitting between the throttles. Then under the autopilot is yaw trim. That's your rudder, left, right. And then to the left of that, the round knob, we'll see a little closer, I think, in the next image, is the aileron trim tab. The little red button there is your 406 ELT. Full co-pilot instruments. We have an attitude, GG, barometric altimeter, suction, outside temperature. Looks real nice, and again you can see the scuff plates. Yokes look good, but we can powder coat them or leather cover them. Placarding is excellent. You'll notice there, right to the right of the panel and at the lower end and all over, is excellent placarding. I really enjoy seeing very good placarding when avionics shops do the panels. The owner was kind enough to take some photos. I haven't gone out to see the airplane just quite yet, or sent one of my sales associates, so we don't have several interiors, but this is great. 2020, December 2020, all beige leather, headrest adjusts, seats recline, and they adjust and the seats move. We have 6 seats. Many people take one out. Pilot is number 1, co-pilot's number 2, aft facing left side number 3, aft facing right side number 4. The forward facing left side's number 5, and the forward facing right seat, which you don't see in this picture, is number 6. Many people take number 5 out, just makes easier access to the cockpit, and just most people don't need it anyhow. It's easy to pop back in if you need it. Seat belts are beige to match the leather, and also your pilot and co-pilot have shoulder harness. Very nice. New carpet, new paint, new interior. Very, very, very nice. Next image. As you can see, the nacelle on the 340A is very close, very tight. It was designed that way, obviously, for speed. Here you can see where the prop wash from the propeller goes right back over the horizontal stabilizer. It's a nice feature. Prop wash gives you, of course, good pitch control on takeoff and landing. You've got a lot of airflow going over the horizontal stabilizer. So very early in the takeoff, late in the flare, you have a nice live yoke pitch. Again, you see what's called the recognition light. These are the heated propellers. You'll notice there's a rubber boot on each propeller. part of the no and ice package is heated propellers. So these are 76-inch Macaulay, the diameter is 76-inch, and each prop is heated up, each blade is heated. Part of the no and ice package is the hot plate on the pilot's windshield. The co-pilot and pilot both benefit from the 35,000 BTU heater/defroster. From experience, I can tell you, you rarely need to use the hot plate. I didn't say never, but rarely. Most of the time, if you, let's say you're at 20,000 feet and you got to go down through 3 or 4 or 5,000 feet of cold, wet air, get the defroster going on maximum. You won't get your toes frostbit. And as you come down, that defroster, get it nice and toasty on the windshield. Most of the ice won't form or slides off, and does a good job. And if needed, of course, use the hot plate. It's on the pilot side, as you can see. Also, you see the taxi light on the nose gear. The baggage area in the nose is large. We'll show you that here in a little bit. I think it's 300 pounds. You usually will bulk out before you weigh out, and there's a door on each side, so it's very convenient. Here you can also see the boot on the stub, the inner wing as some people call it, and of course superb paint. Here you see the taxi light again, and you see the airplane's wide stance gear. Wide stance gear gives you excellent control in crosswind taxiing, crosswind takeoff and landings. So let's create a worst case scenario. You have a short runway. That means you probably have a narrow runway. It's not going to be a short runway that's very long. And so you got to land at that location. Make your approach steep, head out of the cockpit, know your power settings and airspeeds ahead of time. So you're going to come down a steep approach, power control, head out of the cockpit, and let's just make it a crosswind today from the left side, the pilot side of the airplane. So you drop your wing into the crosswind, short runway, narrow runway. As soon as that main touches down, immediately get the opposite main gear down, then the nose gear down, and positive braking. The wide stance gear keeps you from going off that runway, collapsing a gear, ruining an engine, ruining a prop, paint, exterior, and worst case scenario. Let's talk about the fuel system. It's a common question. A lot's been written about it. It's not complicated. As we are viewing this video, hundreds of twin Cessnas throughout the world. The original tip tanks on the 310 were referred to as tuna tanks. Kind of looked like a porpoise jumping in and out of the water, or a dolphin. They were drag only. They weren't an airfoil. They didn't fly. They held 50 gallons, but they didn't fly like an airfoil. The tip tank was modified. It's canted. You'll see that when you look at it from the front or the back, and it's an airfoil. It flies, carries the 50 gallons, which is 300 pounds. Let's take a look at the rest of the tanks, the fuel tank system. We always take off and land on the tip tanks, the mains. When? Always, always, always. Don't get creative. Don't try and think of an exception. Always, always, always. Within the wing are 2 rubber bladders that we call the aux tanks. The tip tanks can be synonymous to main. If you say either, I know what you mean. Within the wing are the nacelle tanks. So we have 50 gallons in each tip tank, 31.5 in each of the rubber bladders. One's a 20, one's 11.5. That's 31.5. So 50-50, 2 31.5s equals 163 gallon usable. That's what most people think of as standard. Technically it was an option, but standard. In this airplane, sitting behind the left engine, the one we're looking at, is a 20-gallon nacelle tank. Some people call it a wing locker tank. Correct nomenclature is a nacelle tank. So if we add 20 gallons to the 163, this airplane has 183 total usable. So 50 gallons in the tips, and 31.5 in each aux auxiliary, only one term for that. And then we go, sitting behind the left engine is the 20-gallon nacelle tank. On the right side, again, let's walk ourselves back here from the spinner here on the left side. So we have a spinner, a propeller, a Ram 6 engine. Behind that is a 20-gallon nacelle tank. And at the very end of the left side engine nacelle structure is some storage for baggage. On the right side of the airplane, we start with a spinner, propeller, and engine. And then there's a cavity, let's call it the Grand Canyon, a cavity behind the right engine. It can be another 20-gallon tank, not in this case, but it could be. It could be a Cessna factory air conditioning, but not in this case. So therefore the storage area is larger than on the left side of the airplane. So we've got on the right side, propeller, engine, storage area, because the air conditioning in this airplane is the Keith aftermarket, which is up in the nose, and we don't have the extra tank. That cavity can be one of two things, or one of three things. A tank, Cessna factory air, or nothing. In this case, it's nothing. So you have a larger storage area. Here's how we use the fuel system. We always take off and land on the mains, the tip tanks. Always, always, always. Let's say we climb to 20,000 feet. That takes about 25 minutes, level off. And now we continue to fly on the mains for up to 1 hour. So you had about 20, 25 minutes where you're using more gas in the climb. Level off, set up 65%, for example. And at the end of 1 hour, the fuel, the tip tanks and the fuel are obviously less. Now we can pump the 20 gallons that's in the left side nacelle tank out into the left tip tank. I know what you're thinking. That's only occurring on one side, so that left side's going to get a little heavier. You're correct. And once we get some weight, the airplane is starting to show a little weight on that side, we turn on the little transfer pump and we pump the 20 gallons out to the tip tank. Very simple, no big deal. Takes about 45 minutes for the 20 gallons to get moved to the tip tank. Turn it off. Now we go to the aux tanks. We consume the 31.5 in each aux tank. And when those are consumed, we go back to the mains. So we're going to take off and land on the mains. The goal of a good twin Cessna pilot is to land with maximum fuel in the mains, because that gives you the most options. You've used up the gas in 1 or 2 nacelle tanks, fuel in the aux tanks, and all your options are increased because you have most of the fuel that is possible in your tip tank. Let's talk a little bit about pressurization. It's always easiest to do from the right side. If you look down a little bit underneath the fuselage directly between, you see a little scoop. That's not a scoop associated with the engine. It's called the air exchanger. So a byproduct of turbocharging, of course we need turbocharging for pressurization, is hot air. It comes off the turbocharger. And the routing goes as follows. It comes off the turbocharger, goes through the wing to that air exchanger. The air exchanger adjusts temperature. There's controls for the pilot. It then goes forward to the heater, which is in the nose on the right side. Does a 180-degree turn, comes back through the heater, and then is distributed through the windshield, cabin, and the cockpit. So here's how we control that temperature and use the heater. The warm pressurized air is pretty hot, comes in, and on a cold, cold day, it's wintertime, cold, or even at altitude in the summertime, we want that warm air. It's our friend. So on a control in front of the co-pilot's position, we close the scoop, the air exchanger, therefore allowing that warm, hot air to not be cooled down by incoming ram air. It then goes forward, does a 180 turn, comes back through the heater, and is warm air into the cockpit. If the air isn't hot enough, it's even colder. When the air is coming back through the heater, we have the heater on 35,000 BTU, which further heats that. So the heating system says, thanks, Mr. Pilot, for giving me this nice warm air. The heater system would say, thanks for giving me nice warm air rather than nice cold air. I'll do a better job. Now on a hot day, the summertime, we adjust the control for the air exchanger to the open position. Therefore, we're going to now allow ram air at a couple hundred knots to cool down somewhat that hot pressurized air. So again, here comes the air, hot air off the turbo through the stub to the air exchanger. It's partially cooled down by ram air, goes forward, does a 180 through the heater. Of course, we wouldn't use the heater on a hot day, but it now comes into the cabin. And the air conditioning system says, thank you, Mr. Pilot, for giving me some air that's not quite so hot so I look better as an air conditioner. Also, you can see, again, great visibility, taxi light on the nose, wide stance gear, excellent paint, and again, prop wash going back over the horizontal surface. Next image. Here's your baggage, door on each side of the airplane. I think it's 300 pounds, maybe 350. I need to double check that. Again, loaded up, airplane flies nice with the nose heavy. You don't have a heavy yoke pitch on rotation or on landing. Airplane flies real nice with the nose heavy. You can put outside in the nose and in the wing locker storage items that aren't affected by cold, non-pressurized air, books, documents, coats that you only need on one direction of the flight, other things that aren't affected by the temperature and lack of pressurization. I always say food, toys, games, cosmetics, those types of things you'd have inside the airplane. The pressurization system is 4.2 psi. So for example, at say 20,000 feet, you have about a 7,500 foot cabin, not unlike a high performance single, very comfortable. Next image. Stop for a second. Okay, now let's talk about another feature of this 340 is the huge vertical area, big tail and rudder. It's a nice feature. In fact, 50% of the vertical area is the rudder. So that big barn door rudder gives you excellent control in crosswind taxiing, takeoffs at all phases in flight. Let's say we're practicing some single engine work. I slowly pull one of the throttles back. Let's make it the right throttle. The airplane yaws to the right. You're pressing, of course, straightening out with your rudder pedals, and you get rid of the pressure with the trim tab, and you end up having a nice docile twin when you're practicing on one engine. When you're ready to shoot your final approach, my particular style is about half mile out on final, I get rid of the trim. I like to, if you'll use the word, fight at the last half mile or so. So when I'm over the runway and I'm pulling off my power, there's not a lot of trim in there and the airplane doesn't yaw on me. That's a nice feature. Just as the props going over the horizontal surface is a nice feature in taking off and landing. The large vertical surface, 50% of it being rudder, is a nice positive. Now let's do a summary of the airplane. Brand new paint interior, December 2020. Ram 6 Plus engine, 335 horsepower with the American Aviation intercoolers. 183-gallon fuel system. No on ice, fully booted, wings and tail, hot propellers. Great visibility for the pilot and co-pilot. Lots of nose baggage, flies nice with the nose heavy, wing locker storage. Wide stance gear, excellent for crosswind takeoffs and landings. Visibility for the passengers is excellent. Brand new cabin material. Excellent panel. Garmin 530W, EX500. We have ADS-B in and out with a GTX 345. Low total time airplane, 4,200 hours. Most of them will have 55, 6,500. Engines under mid-time, 680 is mid-time considered. These engines have about 535, maybe a little bit more. Props are low time, 266, far away from the 2,000-hour TBO. Spoilers, speed brakes, same thing on this airplane. No speed restriction on those, obviously landing gear and flaps have a speed restriction. Vortex generators, 90% of twin Cessnas or more will have those, wouldn't have a twin without them. They're on the wings and tail. They make it a more docile twin, and they also enhance takeoff and landing distance. They're not a stall system, but they can, if you're approaching at a slower speed, you're going to land in a shorter distance, save on tires and brakes. If you can take off in a shorter distance, again, that's enhancing your takeoff. The most important thing is speed. You also get some weight increases as a result of vortex generators, but you cannot double the weight increase of the Ram 6 modification and vortex generators. Can't double. Very good. Hope you've enjoyed this. Look over all areas of jerrytemple.net. spec sheet, technical data sheet, shows weights, dimensions, and other technical information. Here's how we do business. We obviously can verbalize an offer, discuss it with the seller, but assuming we get to a point where an offer needs to be submitted, we do it on a form called the Jury Temple Offer to Purchase form. It's not a final purchase agreement, it says so. Basically gets us through the pre-purchase inspection, test flight, other actions before we're ready to close and complete the sale. Once we do that, we complete the action on a purchase agreement. We close, fund, ownership changes. Special 2 words, ownership changes. It's your airplane. No maintenance of any kind is performed on the airplane until ownership changes. And that's the way you want it. You want to be the boss. Any maintenance is going to be done post-sale. JGA can support you with training, flight training for pilots, delivery support worldwide, and also we can do what I call babysit the airplane. The shop that's doing the pre-purchase inspection obviously is qualified or we wouldn't be there, and they can conduct not only post-sale maintenance but any modifications that you may be done. One word about pre-purchase inspection locations. Jokingly, I don't fly airplanes from New York to California. I don't care who's paying the fuel. I hope that your mechanic is the world's greatest mechanic. We can bring him to the aircraft's location, which is Santa Barbara, California, and to do an inspection. If he's from Boston or New York, far cheaper than we could ever fly the airplane. We can supply him with tools, equipment, helpers, etc. In addition, if the shop that's using doing the pre-purchase inspection, as I said earlier, will be qualified, and that's all coordinated by me. It's a negotiated item where the inspection is being done. Remember, good shops stay busy, so that's a challenge. Good shops stay busy. But I have a lot of good influence over the years working with a lot of great shops. Thank you very much for your time. Hope you enjoyed this and it's beneficial. And above all else, call if you have any questions.